I am joined by Dr. Niels Schneider, author of Ecopreneurship, Best Practices for a Sustainable Future. Welcome to the session, Niels.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me.
So what an exciting and relevant time for your new book.
Yeah, definitely. I think now is quite a good time when there's a lot of change happening, and I guess change is basically the primary theme that's running through the book, how we can change the way that we do business and the way that we consume as well. So in the current discussion that we can have about how is the world going to look after COVID, how's the world going to look in response to issues like climate change, I'd hope to think that the book has some valuable insights to contribute to that.
So the book itself is very research-based. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the basis for the research?
Yeah, absolutely. So the book is the outcome of the research I did in the last three and a half years. And it deals with ecopreneurs, which is basically a combination of the word ecological and entrepreneur. And it's built on the premises or the academic idea that entrepreneurs are typically involved in changing the way that we do business, changing the nature of products that we're using. They're heavily involved in innovation. And because they do these things, they typically challenge everything that is existing in business at the moment. So we would say a business starts up, they bring their product out, they get big, and then they tend to get a bit complacent maybe. And the entrepreneur can then come in with an idea to do something differently, to do something better, and launches a new product or a new resource, production method, could be anything, into the market. And by doing so, either forces the existing companies to adapt in this way or to move out of the market. And this idea has been further developed then to say, okay, is there a way that people can do this also with sustainable products or production methods? So we could say, okay, what we're doing currently, as we hopefully all know by now, isn't very sustainable. So the way that big business works is quite detrimental to the planet. The way that we consume might also be. So there should be a space for entrepreneurs to come into the market with more sustainable products that then make the existing products obsolete and would change the things that we have available for consumption and the way that we produce things, would change that towards a more sustainable future. And that's basically the theoretical background that the book has. And it says, okay, I've then gone and said, okay, but how do ecopreneurs actually do this? So the idea is that the ecopreneur would be the person who's doing that, who drives the sustainable innovation into the market. And I've been looking at the actual business practices. So there's a lot written already that says, okay, these are the benefits that can come from ecopreneurship, that we say, okay, they alter the way that the market works, they address different market failures as well. We can say that the way that we do business in an unsustainable way is a failure of the market to actually keep sustainability going. And the question then is, how do they actually put this into practice? What are the different things that they do? And for that, I've done research where I've gone into the food industry. So empirically, this is all set within the food industry. And I've done case studies with 12 ecopreneurial ventures, where I've then interviewed the founders and I've looked at what are their business practices, how do they portray themselves on their websites, from two perspectives really. So I've started off looking at what do they do on the firm level, but then also broadened it to say, okay, what do they do on a supply chain level? Because essentially the idea is that you as a business can only be as sustainable as your supply chain. There's no value in doing everything right in one spot if everything that comes before or comes after isn't sustainable. So the book takes these two perspectives of saying, okay, what do people do within their firm to deliver their sustainability mission? And then what do they do across different firms to create more sustainable supply chains as well?
So that's interesting. When you talk about this ecopreneurship, I think what you're if I'm right, what you're kind of adhering to here is this kind of principle of change, and it's almost like about welcoming change. Is this, I mean, certainly when you're looking at the food industry particularly, which obviously has at times quite complex sort of value and supply chains kind of on either end of it, if it's a producer or a manufacturer, not necessarily just a retailer, it's a very, very complex mix of processes. So is what you're looking at here something that is about the ecopreneur of the future is going to be somebody who's very welcoming of change, and it's all about this almost continuous improvement of everything that they do? Is that going to be one of the real features of a successful ecopreneur going forward?
So in a way, a lot of the ecopreneurs, they have to continuously develop what they're doing. I guess most businesses at the moment definitely have to continuously develop what they're doing, or they will become irrelevant. And we've seen faster paces of change and faster pace in development of new products and technologies and so on. I guess because the ecopreneurs have this notion of challenging the status quo that we have currently, and there's this dissatisfaction about how we do business. Fostering change is basically integral to what they're doing. They are very much focused on bringing about that change, which then means they will have to be able to adapt to change themselves as well. So they will bring the change, but they will also be exposed to it, I think.
So what you're implying there then is that almost every business owner, every entrepreneur, even if they're not thinking from a sort of an eco sustainability angle, but it's almost that everybody on the other side of COVID is going to need to have this sort of mindset. Feels like there's something as a business owner or as somebody in a commercial world, it feels like all of us need to have this kind of mindset going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can't just break it down to like a small group of people who are responsible for changing the world, and everyone else can sit around and be complacent in a way. I think this has to be a joint effort by producers, retailers, but also the consumer will have to change their behavior. And the nice thing, I guess, so it sounds a bit daunting maybe that we say everyone kind of has to participate in this and everyone has to maybe be more open to change. And we kind of often we uphold the entrepreneur as this glory figure of development and of innovation. And I guess I wouldn't want to uphold the ecopreneur as like the only glorious person who can bring sustainable development along. But in a way, everyone has the opportunity to become ecopreneurial. So what's a bit of a problem sometimes I find in a lot of sustainability literature is just a very ongoing debate about what is actually sustainability, or is this practice sustainable? Do you have to be 100% sustainable, or can you be like half sustainable? And there's all these discussions about what is a green business and a green business and so on. And I like to go more back to the idea of entrepreneurship, I guess, like in the way that it was conceived in the 30s by Schumpeter, where he said, okay, the entrepreneur is someone who drives innovation, and equally the ecopreneur would be someone who drives innovation for sustainable development. But you're only really an entrepreneur as long as you do that. Once you've put your innovation into place and you stop doing it, are you still an entrepreneur? And then equally, that means that you aren't or are not, like you aren't or are an entrepreneur, an ecopreneur, but everyone has the opportunity to become an ecopreneur if they are willing to put the effort in to change the way that they do business towards a more sustainable way.
I love the clarity with which you explain that, because I think for me, suddenly, there's a realism to this, which I think a lot of people have been searching for, this whole, meaning and definition behind sustainability. And I think what you've just done there is you've really defined it so clearly by saying, if I'm right, that this is all about the delivery and the execution of the idea and the innovation, not just the strategy and the thinking about it. Feels the way you're describing this is that to do this properly, it is all about the delivery. You have to make the change, not just think about it. Is that something that's sort of come through in your sort of research, is that the people who are doing this properly are the ones who are actually acting on it, not just strategizing and planning?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the way that the people, the way that I went about defining or finding the cases that I wanted to examine wasn't so much that I said, okay, here's a hard set of criteria or their thought leaders, particularly in their field or something. I went out and I looked at what is it that these people are doing? What is their mission that they say, and how do they deliver this? So it's all, like I say, it's called business practices. So it is all based on the practices really of what these people are doing. And it is the actionable things that you bring into place of how you want to improve your business or business in general, that makes them ecopreneurial.
You currently teach at the University of Bristol on a range of different courses, including, I noticed, the digital economy. I'm just wondering how the digital economy comes into play here, because I would imagine there'll be a lot of people listening or watching this who'll be thinking, I have a digitally driven idea that I think could fit the sustainability model. I think it's quite innovative, so it almost kind of ticks all those boxes. Well, what kind of examples and what kind of things are you seeing in the digital economy that might sort of bring this to life for some people?
I think in the digital economy, it has a lot of opportunities. It's quite challenging as well. I think a lot of people find it quite easy to understand their sustainable impact that they're making if they have a big production company and they have all these resources, which maybe a digital venture wouldn't have in the same way. But the big opportunity, I guess, is that one of the problems why so much unsustainability is existing at the moment is that we just have very poor information about a lot of things. So there's this concept, information asymmetry, that maybe producers don't know what the consumer wants, the consumers don't know the different features of a product, so you don't really know, is what I'm consuming at the moment, is that actually something that is good for the environment, is bad for the environment? Where can I find that out? And these are things where in the digital economy you have huge opportunities that you can say, okay, I'm going to bridge this gap where people don't actually know, how am I going to be more sustainable? Is my consumption sustainable? Am I doing the right kind of thing? Where I guess a lot of space exists for digital entrepreneurship to venture into that area. Equally, I've seen that the digital economy is very big on promoting ideas like the circular economy, that we can have new systems where we have these closed loop supply chains where we take back things and then we reuse them, we can remanufacture different products. You have a lot in terms of, for example, secondary markets. So there are websites like Back Market where people can then take their own old phones that typically just lie in their shelf or something and sell them on, so that we don't need the resources. These kind of things are huge opportunities that exist in the digital space.
Yeah, it's quite exciting, isn't it, really? Because it's almost as creative as we want or can be. There's going to be an opportunity in there. And I guess quite a lot of this is going to be based around what we might term big data. So that kind of empirical sort of evidence, the numbers, the forecasting. I mean, where do you see things like big data sort of going in the coming years as part of this whole debate?
I think big data is an interesting one, because on the one hand, the kind of people that I spoke to, they all had rather small ventures and they didn't really have huge resources. So for them, one of the big problems was, for example, tracking their ecologic footprint. They said they are strapped for opportunities to actually assess what their footprint is, because most of the frameworks that exist are made for big businesses. So like some of the smaller organic farms, they couldn't use a framework that then asked them how many helicopters they had on their farm or something like that, because this just doesn't apply really to them. And I think in that sense, like a lot of the grassroots or smaller ecopreneurial things, they won't really be able to use big data in that way. But at the same time, you have all these possibilities of doing life cycle assessments, where you actually look at what is the footprint of a product from start to end. That will give us huge insights into what we're doing. Does that go in the right way? Does it have the right impact that we are trying to achieve? And I think there might be a role for that in business, but I think we can massively benefit there by establishing stronger links between business and academia. So at Bristol Uni, we try to take this like civic responsibility that we have to really build partnerships with a lot of businesses in and around Bristol. even if they're smaller, and then help them understand what they're doing. So I think these issues around sustainability assessment, and data processing is something that academia is very much suitable of doing, and I think a lot of smaller entrepreneurs might not be. And I think building relationships there could be a big way forwards to improving the economy in the future.
Some wonderful little anecdotes, which I'm sure, go into a lot more detail in your book, but I just love this mix of partnership, of innovation, of being creative, of being very sort of action orientated, of basing things on evidence and research. There's just this lovely mix of just really good commercial practice here, isn't there?
Yeah, I guess one of the reviewers of the book said they really liked that the entrepreneurs came to life in the way that I presented their stories. So because it is a small scale study and it's based on 12 case studies, I obviously didn't do the big quants or statistics on it, but I tried to present the voice of the ecopreneurs throughout the book. So all the evidence that I'm presenting is supported by little quotes from the interviews that I've done, just to exemplify a little bit the understanding that the ecopreneurs have of what they're doing themselves. And then I try to bridge that back and link it to the literature that might be just a bit dry in a way, maybe, or not that accessible, and try to really bring those ideas a bit more to life.
So what's your big dream then for ecopreneurship after the current situation has eased? I mean, a lot of economists, a lot of the media are talking about this impending sort of economic downturn, lots of crisis. I see the word crisis used an awful lot. There's a lot of quite evocative language happening right now. What's your big dream in a positive sense? Where do you see this going in the coming years?
Well, if I dream completely outside of any restrictions, which I guess is the sense of dreaming, I would kind of hope that ecopreneurship develops to a size where it starts becoming the new normal in a way, so that the way that the ecopreneurs think about their business is very different to what I've seen from other people thinking about business. And because they are so motivated by challenging the structures that we have, and so motivated by basically creating a new way of doing business, I would hope that we can see this kind of change from within. And what particularly is striking about ecopreneurs is that they do very much care about the environment, but they don't only care about the environment. So the term was originally, I think, created in the late 90s as someone who would start an ecologically motivated venture. But over the last 20 years and all the empirical studies, we've basically seen that the ecopreneurs are also very much concerned with social issues. So it's kind of this feel that there is very little point in doing something to save the environment if we throw the people under the bus along the way. And I think this is something that will be very valuable in the post-COVID world, that we try to think about doing business in a way where everyone benefits from doing business, where it's not just a few shareholders that are there and everyone kind of works for them, and all the value that we create gets channeled out of the economy effectively, but really that there's the sense of sharing the value that we are creating, and sharing that with the people who are creating it, but also with the planet, obviously, and trying to maintain the viability of the planet.
I have no doubt at all that people watching this and listening to this are going to want to find out more. How do people connect with you and find the new book?
They can connect with me on LinkedIn. They could just simply write me an email. So that's niels.schneider@bristol.ac.uk. And I will be publishing a website soon, and you should be able to find that on nielsschneider.com.
Dr. Schneider, thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me.